to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call me in order 6:02 and the South. We're going to do a couple of tenures. We're going to actually vote on a couple tenure and through all of those.
Yeah, just Alex Price and Brandon Brummer.
Okay.
Unless you want to do all of them. I know two of them are here.
So why don't we do the two that are here? Okay. So we're going to skip into 11 points. 22. Here it resolved that Alex Grace be granted tenure as secondary special education teacher effective September 21st, 2021. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Yes, I want to say I would be thrilled to vote for him for tenure because of the high esteem in which I hold him and have observed him working with students.
Only if he keeps coaching football too.
Qualification of the motion. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. 1123, be resolved that Brandon Brummer be granted tenure as a secondary math teacher effective October 6th, 2021. A motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I will echo my comments again. High esteem for how he works with students.
And thanks, Brandon.
Any other discussion?
Can I add a few things about both gentlemen? I'll just say to keep it brief. I got invited to come tonight. I told him I say a few nice things. So I get a write up to the board, basically singing the praises. Oakfield is a better place because you guys are here. Just couldn't be more thrilled about you guys. And so I'll share that I share with the board. So thank you for coming tonight. Very happy to work alongside.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Congratulations, guys.
Okay, so we're going to move back to presentations. Tim had an appointment, so wasn't able to be here with us tonight. But for Tim and Lorna, we've got these plaques for the years of service on the school board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your years, Lorna.
Honor to serve.
We'll get this to Tim.
Thank you, both Lorna and Tim.
Okay, and then second will be our use of stimulus funds.
So I'll just mention to the board that this is going to serve as our public presentation for our community stakeholders, our faculty and staff, and the board. Part of the stimulus funds for this ARPA is we are to, by July 1, to have a forum in a variety of different ways in which we can present our initial plan and then have our community stakeholders provide us feedback. And then our plan needs to be on our website. Our initial draft and our outline of our plan needs to be on our website by July 1, so the timing is just impeccable. So this will serve as our public presentation, and I want to thank Rob Z because tomorrow we will get this up. We will send out links. We will send out information through Parent Square. We will also have it up on our website because we certainly want to hear from our community residents that may or may not have obviously students in the district, but we will make this readily available. We have about a 9 to 10 day open window for comments, but we would like to run through our initial plan, where the funding came from, what the well, I shouldn't say the application, but what our plan looks like. The application has not come out yet, but this is something that I can thank the administrative team. They've worked like dogs over the last month or so in regards to what we can utilize these monies for. So thank you for all of your time and efforts in doing that. It's not an easy task, and it's not the right time of year, but we somehow managed to get through it. So I appreciate everybody, and Christine as well. Just unbelievable work in a very, very stressful time of year. So Christine and I will present to you the stimulus funding. I know that the administrators for the most part know this presentation. I don't see any guests, but if you wanted to move over there, that's fine.
So our federal stimulus money, I know there's been a lot of conversation obviously in all over about it. The remaining 2 buckets, there was 3 buckets. The first one was last year, as you know, as part of the budget, was used to balance the budget. The 2 that came out this year that we're going to present on tonight is the SRISA, which is, they're calling ESSER 2. That's the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplement Appropriations Act. Therefore, an acronym to go with that long-winded name. That's the act that was passed in December. These 2 buckets are different than the very first one when we had the CARES Act. That was general fund revenue. These 2 are special aid fund revenue. Again, we talked about it, I think, when we did the budget presentations. Not anything that could really help us with our balancing our budget this year. This is outside the general fund. The funding period for the SRISA is from March of 2020 through September of 2022, but there's a way to extend that for another year. That was about $703,000 for our district. And then the ARPA Act, which is the American Rescue Plan Act, that was the one that was passed just this March. Again, special aid revenue, similar time period, we have an extra year on that one. And the allocation for our district was $2.6 million. Our plan for this time period that these grant funds are available to us, this is how we're looking at utilizing them. The SRISA will be it's just over the first 2 years. ARPA will be able to use over 3 years, and we'll kind of explain a little bit about how that allocation is working. Right now, we're spreading it pretty even over the first 3 years, but some of this stuff might be front-loaded as we have a bigger expense that hits in 1 year over another. For the purposes of this, we've allocated it over evenly over the first 3 years, and then that last year, because it only goes through September, we did a smaller portion towards that. The SRISA, or ESSER 2 as it's also called, is our allocation was $703, and the budget was, the applications were due June 15th. We met that deadline, we got that in. The subcomponents, there's 2 pieces to it. The GER money we use to maintain 1 counselor's salary for the 21-22 fiscal year, and then the ESSER 2 portion of it, which was $647,000. We use that to maintain 3 teacher salaries and 1 counselor salary for the 21-22 and then the 22-23 fiscal years. And the reason for doing this one the way that we did, it gives us more flexibility with this money. This is money that can be pulled back into the general fund and help support the general fund budget. The ARPA money, our allocation was $2.6 million, and within that, this is the one that we haven't gotten guidance on the application as of yet. We have 4 buckets of money. It's really geared towards learning loss and addressing getting students back into the school buildings and into the classrooms. So the way the allocations came from the state was that we had to allocate for summer enrichment $273,000, and comprehensive after-school programming is $273,000. And then we also had a bucket that was allocated strictly for learning loss, which is $1.5 million, and then other expenditures of $619,000 that can be more general. So for example, that would be where we would pay for things like getting the building safe for kids to come back.
So just so you know, guidance came out as far as the requirements for this ARPA money, and what school districts need to do is develop a plan for the safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services. The one thing that we're ahead of the game on is we have been back in person 5 days a week. So I do know that many districts are using these funds to make sure they can return back to school 5 days a week. So that does help us, is that we're ahead of the game. NYSED will permit previously developed reopening plans to satisfy this requirement. We must make any necessary updates and confirm to the United States Department of Education requirements and review and revise every 6 months through September of 2023. Our reopening plans that we created last August in 2020 satisfy this requirement. The only thing that we needed to change due to the new guidance that came out last month was that masks were mandatory whether you were 6 feet apart or not. Part of our reopening plan was that if students were sitting at their desks and they were 6 feet apart, which we still guarantee, that they could take their masks off. We just had to go back and change that, as that that masks were mandatory throughout the school day. I did go into the New York State portal. I did say that Oakfield did not have any major changes to their plan, more so regarding the social distancing. If you recall, they said, oh, schools can now open at 3 feet apart. And that kind of blew up for the middle and high schools because they said if you're less than 3 feet and now you're in a red zone, now you had a cohort. We are no longer in the red zone, so we can have 3 feet. But if you move students back to 3 feet, you have to provide a whole new reopening guide document. That just doesn't affect us here. There's no reason for our kids to be 3 feet if we can maintain them as 6 feet. We will review that over the summer and come into the fall because we'll have to look at class sizes. We do want to get our building back to somewhat normal. We don't want to be using the community room. We don't want to be using the auditorium. We don't want teachers, having to move to different classrooms and be on carts. So we'll just monitor that situation over the summer. But as of right now, our reopening plans do not need to be changed. And as I mentioned to you before, we need now to develop a plan for the use of these funds and then have that posted by July 1, which is coming very quickly. So part of the guidelines for the district plan usage, there's really 8 buckets for this. And this is where we're going to ask the teachers, the staff, our community members to provide us some feedback. And please understand that the use of this aid money needs to be prioritized on non-reoccurring expenses, because after 3 years this money will be gone. So we need to be very aware of making sure that a lot of this is one-time purchase and a one-time expense, or if you do put in programs or you do put in staffing, that obviously when this money runs out in 3 or 4 years you can maintain that. So the 8 buckets are these. We can use monies to provide a safe return to in-person instruction. Now, what does that mean? A lot of this is very general in nature, which is actually a good thing. So we could purchase masks, we can purchase extra sanitation, we can purchase extra things. We can purchase air filters and air handling machines. So that can fall under something like this, and I'll provide you some examples about what our plan looks like. Maximizing in-person instruction time, operating schools and meeting the needs of students, purchasing technology, addressing effects of pandemic disruptions upon students, implementing evidence-based strategies to address students' social, emotional, and mental health and academic needs. Again, offering evidence-based summer, after school, and other extended learning opportunities and enrichment programs, and then supporting early childhood education. And again, we are required to seek public comment before submitting our plans. Again, the application hasn't come out yet, but we will have our plan posted by the mandated July 1. So if you could, I don't know, Rob, if you could blow that up a little bit. So this is the document that will be posted. This is something that our administrative team has begun to devise, which again, thank you so much. Again, there's those 8 buckets. And so what we started to do was to earmark some of this money in some of those categories. Again, about $2.6 million. So for example, and I won't go through this whole document because the board will see the final document, after July, but the safely returning students to in-person instruction, and there's a little caveat there. But again, we started listing that we could use some of the monies for air filtration, air conditioning, PPE, sanitation supplies, hiring additional custodial staff. So if that is something that the district needs over these next 3 to 4 years, that's where some of this money can be utilized. Maximizing in-person instruction time. We talked about hiring 2 social workers. We talked about hiring a math specialist, literacy specialist. The one concern you do want to be careful about, and really it depends on the district that you're in, is the hiring of staff and being able to maintain that once the 3 or 4 years are gone of this aid. And then again, operating schools and meeting the needs of students. Again, support staff, replacement of camera system on the buses. So a lot of these categories are very generic, but we need to earmark this money. And I would rather have too many requests and not enough money to purchase all of this, rather than us scratching our heads saying, hey, we got this money left over, because if you don't use it, they'll take it away from you. So there's 8 boxes. We're gonna get feedback from our teachers, staff, community board members, whoever wants to read this document. And again, we'll push out over the next 48 hours a nice Google Doc that they could read, and then again, type in any one of these. Someone may have recommendations for all 8, but if they just wanted to think of an idea for, purchasing educational technology, we'll take that feedback and devise our plan through all the stakeholders' feedback.
Sorry.
John, where's that
It's
gonna
the
be?
mouse.
We're gonna be able to see that document. Is that gonna be?
Yes, we'll push that out. It'll be on our website within the next 48 hours. Absolutely, we'll have links to it all. There is also a cover letter that explains, from me, kind of where this money comes from. Again, obviously we're recording the board meeting, so people can go back and take a look at the slideshow, but we will also have this draft plan up with, some explanations, and then the ability for anyone to provide us feedback. And again, we'll gather all that information the last week of June and put our initial plan up on our website. And once again, this is pre-application. We haven't received the application for it, but we're assuming that the application is going to ask for those 8 buckets to be filled with dollar amounts on how we're going to spend the money. So the process used to determine the final draft plan, again, we need extensive input from our buildings, departments, internal and external stakeholder groups. We're going to have discussion with education leaders. Obviously, weekly, I'm talking to the superintendents in the area about how they're allocating their funds. We're also looking at student outcome data, our achievement, behavior, attendance. Does that play a role in this? One of the things that Christine said was we have to at least engage 20% of these funds for learning loss. We're using a lot more than that. We are assuming that, obviously this COVID pandemic has really taken a toll on some of our students, not only socially and emotionally, but certainly academically. And then we're reviewing just our education plans, our building level operations, and again, we just need the feedback from our stakeholders on how we should use this money. So here is some of the initial draft that we have. These are the recommendations in talking with certain constituents and looking at what is needed in the buildings. I had mentioned to the board that we are looking to hire 2 social workers. That falls under the social emotional aspect of assisting our students. They'll work, side by side with our counselors and provide additional support to our families and students in need. We'd like to hire a math specialist. That would be more so for the middle high school building. We currently don't have one up here. And being able to use these funds to now have someone in here, that's certified in the secondary to, help our, again, this goes to the learning loss, to help our students that are struggling, whether that be through office hours or pushing into classrooms, a lot of flexibility in that.
Currently, right now, as I checked before the board meeting, we had 16 applications for that position. So, that's very promising. We're also discussing a literacy specialist. I do know Lynn has three down at the elementary. We do have one up here, but again, we're going to have to take a look at that student data and student achievement, and the possibility of hiring a literacy specialist for the middle high school is certainly on the docket. We are holding summer school programs. I know Lynn has some boot camps going on this summer, but in the future for our middle high school, this will allow us to either do things in-house or provide extra enrichment or send our students to summer school. We're talking about an extended learning day, and what does that mean? We can use some of these funds to have teachers stay after school and tutor students. We talked about a Sunday morning academy that teachers could be paid to come in and tutor students that are in need. And so, there's lots of opportunities here. We have a remote teaching academy I mentioned to you before, and I know that there was another survey that at least Matt and Lynn both put out today in regards to finding out are families looking to keep their students fully remote going into next year. If that is the case, we put aside some monies that we would send them and have them learn through a remote teaching academy to keep those students off of our teachers here who are dealing with the students that are in person 5 days a week. Again, other supplies and materials in support of instructional program and electives. I know Connie has bought a lot of resources for the elementary, and again, we'll be getting feedback from the middle high school teachers on what they need. Professional development, curriculum resources, the learning loss, the social emotional student supports, and again, we also threw in there air handling units for our instructional spaces. And so, again, there's a lot that can be done with these funds, and we certainly want to put them to good use. So the next steps for this plan is that we will have this posted in the next 48 hours. We're going to solicit public comment, and that's obviously anybody within the district over the course of 8 days. We'll post it on our school website, we'll send it through Parent Square, and then we'll take that feedback and we'll incorporate it into our finalized plan, and then we will post that on our website by July 1. And then we will come back to the board on July 6th with a final plan and see if an application has come out, and certainly, hopefully get the board's thumbs up on the next 2 or 3 years of what our plan is going to be. But we certainly want the feedback. Just to mention to you, we went around to even, the electives. There's a part in there where you can expand or enhance PE, technology, ag, music, the arts. So at that point, we've said to those teachers, look at if there's a wish list besides your normal year-to-year budget stuff, if something that you really need, put it down. I can't guarantee you that we can purchase it, but now is the time to take advantage of it. And if it's certainly something that we can support and can fit into this plan, we'll see if we can make it work. Are there any questions?
This is all federal money, right, John?
That's correct.
So John, the salaries for like literacy and math specialists, 80,000 is just a number being thrown out there?
That's benefits.
That's what benefits too.
Benefits and
Benefits.
everything. Okay. And then when you look at ARPA, the ARPA Act, it said, I think you guys said that it was 2.6 million.
Correct.
And then there was 4 buckets underneath that.
Correct.
So that's what we have that's what's been allocated to us, and that's what we have the potential of receiving, or that's
They're
what,
approximately. We actually received an email at the end of last week saying that they were going to run more aid runs for us, and that these allocations may increase slightly. So this is where we have put that money. Like I had mentioned to you, at least 20% needed to be for learning loss.
Yeah.
So obviously 20% of 2.6, not 1.5.
Well, actually, the way these are defined, we didn't define any of where these buckets go. They said you spend it on learning loss. The only restriction on the 20% is of that 619. The 619 is what we have to spend on learning loss, other than what else has not. We had to at least spend out of the whole bucket that. These are defined by the New York State Act.
So are the buckets defined, and then, so I'm
Correct.
because so
Correct.
I'm picturing a bucket that says summer enrichment. We came up with the 273
Nope, it came from State Ed. They gave us the allocation by bucket.
by bucket, okay.
Correct.
But within those, you have those eight
Categories. the general
categories
correct.
that, yes, so.
And comparatively speaking, so like this is Oakfield's buckets. Do we see this in other school districts in Genesee County about the same amount of money that they're working with comparably?
It really depends. Looking at what the other school districts, I think we're lucky to have this. Obviously the smaller districts are smaller, Batavia is 3 times this.
Sure.
But, yeah, I think this is good for us.
You're asking, is it proportional to student enrollment?
Yeah.
This number?
Right.
I think it's
Yeah.
student enrollment,
Yeah.
economic, socioeconomics, property values in the area. There's all kinds of things that go into the formulas.
And then with these teacher positions, literacy specialists, math specialists, would those be, like, how would that look in our contract then? Would that be like a TOSA, or would that be?
So the math specialist is the only one that we've applied for. We haven't applied for the literacy specialist. They would all go through the OATA.
Same.
Yes. The maths, when I called it the math specialist, it really is just a position that we're hiring a secondary math teacher. Right now, we don't need them in classrooms. We want them to be able to work with our, struggling learners. But at the same time, because of the certification, there certainly is flexibility where if, let's say, we have an internal secondary math teacher that says, hey, you know what? Maybe I'd like to be that person. Then we would say, okay, well, the person that we just hired, we need you in the classroom. So there's flexibility in doing that. So when we call it the specialist, we're really just saying that you're math certified. You don't have 5 or 6 assignments and you're sitting in the classroom grading these kids. It's, we need you to help out, you push into classes, help out with our, these kids at 6th grade office hours, 7th grade office hours, 8th grade office hours, and to help facilitate just, smaller classes and
So Connie, I'm thinking like an RTI model almost.
Yeah,
Is
so
that
it's
what
to
I'm?
help support our MTSS, remember we were talking
Yep.
about we're bringing that in?
Yep.
And they won't be limited to middle school, because we certainly have students in the high school too who have had some learning loss going on with math. But you're absolutely right, Justin, is to support that MTSS RTI model.
Is there less of an expectation of long-term employment if you're hired into these positions, given that it's through grant funding?
There is. The social worker aspect is one of them. However, we can get aided back on some of that. So the monies that we're not using for here can be aided, and we get a pretty good return on that. I will tell you that, we do believe that we would have probably a retirement in the math department in 3 or 4 years. So that person would slide in. At this point, am not looking to hire somebody to cut them after 2 or 3 years. So that's why we do need to be very cautious. I do know some districts are hiring 8 to 10 teachers, and we've talked about that you do need to be very cautious, because you do need to be able to sustain that, like I said, when the monies are gone. So we are moving cautious with that. While we could say, yeah, let's hire 10 teachers, I would be very cautious in doing that, because I can tell you that we wouldn't be able to sustain it. So, like I said, we'll look at the recommendations, and that will be one of the deciding factors if we move forward with that. But right now, I think the initial list of what we have discussed and talked about certainly can be sustainable.
I have a question about, for example, we just granted tenure to Mr. Brummer. If Mr. Brummer, for example, would apply for this math specialist position, would he then have to start over being tenured into a math specialist, or would that math specialist just be counted as a math teacher?
I would work with the OATA. If that was something that he wanted to do, and depending on, you know, the candidates that we hire, we want to put the best people in the best positions. So that would be something that he'd probably be hesitant to do if I said, oh, well, you're starting all over again and you just received tenure. So that'd be something that I'd work with the OATA on.
That's what I wondered, is the person being hired as a math teacher, secondary math teacher, or in a separate tenure line?
Again, I'm going to have to work with the OATA to see what type of candidates we get. While we called it a specialist, we did not, the certification is 7 through 12, and I want that flexibility that we're able to move people around. I wouldn't want to call someone a math specialist and then have someone, let's say, retire and then move them into a regular classroom and say, oh, well, you were the specialist and now you're this, so you got to start over. And you know, I don't want to do that. But that's conversations that we'll have to have down the road.
So in the 3 years when this money is gone, based on our prior month's budget discussions, do you anticipate there being enough funding to continue having that extra math teacher? Or are you relying on the potential retirement to?
I think with some of the long-range planning that Christine and I have done and looking at some of the educational contribution agreements we're getting through our pilots, very sustainable. You know, in 2 or 3 years, we have some pilots coming on, you know, from the STAMP projects, from some of these solar projects, and a lot of that money is in educational contribution agreements, which allows us to use that money for what we need.
And do you anticipate advertising for or creating, I wasn't clear, the secondary reading specialist? Or is that still just in the thought process?
That's still in our thought process. Like I said, we did post because we absolutely saw a need for, you know, the math specialist, the literacy specialist. We'll have to look at some data over the summer, but that's a possibility.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
I do have one question. I was struck, if I read it correctly, you had remote teaching academy,
Yes.
$12,000 for 3 years, which if I can still do the math, that's $4,000 per year?
No, it's 12,000 per year, if we were to run it 3 years.
Okay, so what would that be one teacher taking care of the people who want to just return remotely, or?
No, that's through BOCES. So BOCES is establishing a remote learning academy where they're in the process of gathering information to run a remote learning academy for the area districts in Genesee Valley, that if there was enough interest and we did have a handful of, you know, middle high school students that were going to be 100% remote, we would send them to that academy, well, remotely, and they would be instructed by those remote teachers.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay.
And again, that's just a guess based on the number of students that we may think will take advantage of that.
On to approval of the minutes. Be it resolved that the minutes of the May 11th regular meeting, May 18th special meeting, May 18th budget vote, June 2nd special meeting be approved. Get a motion?
Motion.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Visitors' requests? They don't have any. Approval of warrants? Be resolved after an audit of the bills, payment of the May 13th warrants and internal claims, auditor reports be approved. Do we have a motion? And a second? Did we get one?
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
the second. Or Dan did.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes. Reports?
Well, since our last meeting that we had, the budget was approved by our voters with a 83% yes and 17% no, which I think is a great representation of the support from our community. So that was pleasant. New budget's in the system, and everybody's starting with the new year, getting their budgets in, their purchase orders in, supplies ordered, and ready to rock and roll before they go home for the summer. Our website's updated with all the budget information, but also other financial recommended stuff from the OSC and required documentation for transparency. So it's nice to have that behind us, because I know that they have been going around doing audits on those things. Obviously, we've been spending a lot of time on this federal stimulus money. We're hoping to have that, an application ready for that soon. Wrapping up the school year, and our auditors are coming next week for a preliminary, and then in July they're coming as well for the final audit. And then we have some retirements coming up in transportation, so if anybody's available this Friday in the morning between like 9:30 and 11, we're going to have a little informal breakfast celebration for them over there. And we do have a retirement in our buildings and grounds department. We're going to have out for lunch next week. So good things.
Any questions for Kristen? Thank you. John?
Yeah, just a few announcements. Congratulations to our boys track. They won their 3rd sectional title in 3 years. Well, 4 years, because last year we didn't have it. But so they've won that 3 years in a row. And I just want to thank Pete Bueller, Brandon Brummert, and Brandon Rebert they just do an amazing job with both those teams, and put a lot of time and effort into it. So congratulations to them. Graduation is this Saturday at 10 a.m. Hopefully. We are nervously watching the weather. Right now, it doesn't, chance of rain on Friday with the rehearsal, and then they said Saturday morning, so I'll ask the community, and I know we'll send out a reminder in the next couple days just to stay in tune, and if for some reason we do have to cancel the 10 a.m. Graduation, we'll just keep moving it back to 1, then 4, then 7, and then we'll have it on Sunday. But I know everybody is planning on having it at 10, so we'll do everything in our power to have it at 10. That makes for a long day if we have to keep delaying that. But we are ready to go. I want to thank Heather Gayton and Trina White for their organization, because they are just working 24/7 to make sure everything is in tip-top shape, and they do a fantastic job. And I want to thank Jordan and his crew, because they have to go above and beyond of painting circles on the field and cutting the grass and making sure the campus looks good, and moving things for us. So everybody's all in, and they're just working like crazy. I want to congratulate the Elba OA Lancers golf team. They won the Sectional 5 title. So we had a handful of our students on their golf team, and they've had a great season, and they just won the sectionals as well. So it's been a great year for our sports teams. I know the local exams at the middle and high school begin tomorrow and Thursday, and we have received our technology infrastructure audit that I shared with Rob. Sat down with Jeff Ginsburg and went through his report. I'd like to say that our report overall was very good, and that there are just a lot of minor tweaks that we can do to keep us more protected here on campus as far as internet and our technology infrastructure. It would be a lot of time to fix these things, not a lot of money, and Rob's been already doing things. So nothing major, nothing to worry. I have extra copies if the board is interested in reading that. But I shared it with Rob last week, and him and Rich have been doing a lot of, just minor corrections and things like that. But nothing major. And I don't know if anybody else has anything to share.
I'm excited that we are going to be bringing back our UPK graduation and moving up ceremonies more traditional than we've had in the past. We have 2 parents or 2 guests per child coming in, so our teachers have been working really hard to facilitate that for Thursday and Friday, and I'm just excited to get back to normal.
I'll just celebrate the hard work that Wendy Bergen did this year today with our awards ceremonies, which we've done period by period today. We're smashing success, well organized. We got to recognize a lot of kids, so it was a really great day.
And then this afternoon was our field days, so thank you to Scheigoff who organized that event. It was awesome to see the high school students outside, no masks. I can tell you they were so excited to be out there to see each other and to prep for it. They didn't even eat pizzas that were out there. And if you've been to see adolescents with pizza, it's usually gone. Yeah, they were more excited to see each other unmasked outside than to go eat pizza. So it was exciting to see.
I'm excited that we got through the fourth grade and 8th grade science tests, so we completed those last week. Everything's been buttoned up and graded, and our delivery spot is at 11:10 on Thursday. We have to take them to EduTech and hand them over. So I know the kids and the teachers were happy to have that piece done as well.
And under the ESSER Act and Title I funding, we were able to purchase a great deal of clothing for some of our homeless students in the community. So Lynn and I went out and we made some deliveries, but we bought a lot of clothing for some of our students in need. And we also had the senior parade this week, which was really, really awesome to see. And they got to go down to elementary school too, your old stomping grounds. So a lot of good things going on.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. On to new business. Be resolved that items 8.2 through 8.7 be approved via consent agenda. Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There we go, sorry.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. 8.8, review of student discipline appeal. Whereas a student was subject to disciplinary action as a result of a superintendent's hearing on February 3rd, 2021, whereas the student's family submitted a request to appeal the superintendent's decision on June 3rd, 2021, which is 120 calendar days since the decision was rendered, and whereas the student's family offered a reason for the delay, but their explanation does not justify a 105 calendar day extension of the time frame to file an appeal. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Education will not hear the appeal because it is untimely. We'll get a motion
So moved.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Communications. Got a pile here that I can go through and hand out if anybody wants to see what we got. Discussion roundtable.
You said we did have communication?
I've got a pile of things here. I'm not really sure what it is yet.
There's the 2 contracts that you just approved that need to sign for the health and wellness services. And then there's just
OCs,
there's just a final
OCs
services
bucket.
GVET that needs to be signed by you. Yep.
Okay. Discussion roundtable. Subcommittee reports. This is your turn.
This is my time to shine. We have worked on the Haxton Scholarship, and that went very smoothly. And got to look at a bunch of good candidates, so decisions have been made, and we're moving forward for the graduation. There, you got it. I've been waiting for 2 years, or a year to say that.
Any other committee meetings? Okay. And personnel. Be it resolved that personnel items 11.2 through, are we okay to include 11.15 in this? John and Tara, is there a reason why that was?
Is it true 11:15?
11.14 is what I have written here, but are we okay to do it?
It says 11:2 to 11:14.
Is 15 okay to include?
If you want to, we left it out separate, in case anybody had questions about it.
Okay, we'll leave it out then. 11.2 through 11.14, be resolved that those are approved via consent agenda. Can we get a motion? A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. 11:15, be resolved that the attached MOA be approved as written for the term of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. We'll get a motion.
Motion.
And a second.
Good.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Retirement. Accept the letter of retirement of Mary Lou Andrews, personal health care aide with thanks and regret, effective September 24th, 2021. Can we get a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Any discussion?
Thank you to Mary Lou.
Absolutely, since I've been here, I know she's going to come back for a little bit at the beginning of next year, but she's been great. Very much a professional and certainly going to be missed.
Lynn, she's been here a while. I was trying to think how long has she been here, and I know it since I subbed here. And that was a long time.
Yeah, she started,
Early.
she was here, I think,
2000.
early 2000s. So I
Yeah.
was hired in 2005, and she was here before me. She spent a lot of time in my building and then came up.
She's done a great job, and she's kind of floated all around in the elementary building, right?
Yeah, yep, she's worked as a one-on-one, she's
Yep.
worked as a classroom aide, and then most recently, towards the end of her career, did the healthcare aide.
Yeah, it goes
I
back.
think she probably has ridden a bus for Josh a few times in
Yeah.
his meetings,
Yeah.
so yeah, she's been a versatile employee. A lot of kids loved her. So.
Tough person to replace.
Yeah.
She talked to me when I subbed here, and I thought that was really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. 11:17, tenure. Be resolved that Stacy Hemmer be granted tenure as an elementary teacher effective September 1st, 2021. Any motion?
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Be resolved that Megan Johnson be granted tenure as elementary teacher effective September 1st, 2021. Can we get a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Be resolved that Pamela Schooner be granted tenure as an elementary special ed teacher effective September 1st, 2021. Can we get a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Be resolved that Catherine Naughton be granted tenure as an elementary teacher effective September 1st, 2021. Can we get a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Be resolved that Danielle Hyrick be granted tenure as an elementary teacher effective September 1st, 2021. Can we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Be resolved, the Board of Education enter executive session at 6:50 for the purpose of discussing employee contracts. Can we get a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
You just want to go to the hot range room?